This video is explaining about the artworks that I have submitted to AP in 2018, and I have submitted for AP Drawing and I got a score 4 out of 5. I hope this video could help you in preparing for AP Art. I think this one was the first piece I made in 11th grade. So the teacher gave us the assignment to make this composition of shapes and then to color it with charcoal to show that I have the ability to make different shades. And after finishing the charcoal part, I decided to add the watercolor just to make it more interesting and to give more contrast. When I was making this, I tried to not to make it look too easy by putting a lot of details in it. And for this one, I think it took about 7 to 10 hours. This one's also a similar exercise, and for this one, we were in the art classroom and we had to choose still life and we had to make outline drawings, and then we filled in each shapes with black ink. So this was a long process and it was kind of boring because like the outline was set already and I just had to fill it in. But I think this is a really useful and good exercise if you don't have any other idea. We also had this assignment of designing playing cards, and the concept for my playing cards was traditional Korean patterns, and this is one of the drawings I made. So I used ink and then I colored it with watercolor. And this was like a poster that I had to make by cutting out black and white paper. This was kind of a campaign for discouraging smoking. And this one was also an assignment done in the class. We first had to create a small pattern in the square, and then we printed them out and we arranged it in 4 different ways. So you can get 4 different patterns. And for this one, it took the least time, and I used water-soluble oil pastel, and I drew the hands, and then I added some water on it. I think this took less than 2 hours. This one was done for homework, and I decided to illustrate this. And at the time, I was interested in those biological concepts, so I decided to illustrate the story of the red blood cells and the white blood cells, and these are like the cells on the wall. So I tried to personify them. And this idea expanded to the concentration when I illustrated about the brain and the heart. So for this assignment, the teacher led us to use the projector in the class to shot different images on our faces, and we took photos of them. And then later we drew based on the photos with oil pastel. So for this one, it took much more time than I expected because I remembered using it when I was a child, but it took way more time than I expected. Probably because I had to mix those colors, and to make it smooth, it was extra difficult. Also, after using the oil pastel, we also used baby oil to make it smoother. And this one was done for homework, and I just had the abstract idea of expressing about dreams. This is not an actual dream I had, but I decided to combine those surreal factors. So here I used charcoal. For here, I colored with oil pastel first, and then I added watercolor on there. This assignment was about creating illuminated letters, like in those medieval times. And I wanted to put a lot of things inside it to show that I can draw a lot of details. So I first used ink to draw these outlines, and then I added watercolor on it. The ink was water soluble, so it made these stains like this. So if you want to do this, make sure that the ink is not water soluble so that it wouldn't ruin your colors. Also, the colors look really vibrant because I have edited them later, but the original drawing wasn't that vibrant. And this one was one of the pages in my sketchbook, and I just decided to put it in because I wanted to show that I had these ideas and these had more like spontaneous feelings. This one was also done outside of the class, and this was done in Korea when I went to an art academy. And the idea was to draw while watching the movie. So this one is like the Star Wars. I remember this one was one of the Charlie Chaplin movies. So each paper was from one of the movies, and I just drew while watching the movie. So it's really fast and unpredictable. So this one was also done in the academy, and the idea was originated from my experience of stepping on a dog's pee, and I screamed when I stepped on it. And from the scream, I just got this image of a human meeting a dinosaur. So I decided to combine them and make it as a painting series. And seeing now, I can really see that I have improved in my art skills compared to the pieces in 10th grade. Also those drawing skills, like also in those details and also in the drawing skills. But I think my artworks fit more in 2D design than drawing because these works are really flat and it's more focused on design elements. So one of the ways to find out if your works fit more into AP drawing or AP design is to look at elements of art or principles of design and to see which one you have more. So if your artworks have more form, value, texture, and also artworks that have more still life, and if you have works that are more realistic, then it would fit more to AP drawing. And if your works are more focused on the composition, unity, balance, proportion, and everything, then it would fit more to design. So if your works look like abstract illustration, then I think it would more fit to 2D design. And most of the breadth pieces I did here were really flat and it was more focused on the design principles and colors. So I think that's one of the things I lacked for AP drawing. And this was my first draft for the artist statement in 11th grade. So it says that I wanted to visualize an imagery and abstract world of invisible interactions between knowledge and emotions inside us by showing them as metaphors, process, or story, using the brain and heart as subject matters. So just to sum it up, it's about brain and heart. And I wanted to represent the knowledge with brain and emotions by heart. I know that heart doesn't do anything with the emotions and it's all about the brain, but I just wanted to use the misconception that our ancestors had before. Also because we use the word heart a lot for describing our feelings until now. And the second one says, I initially started the idea of personification of organs, but figuring out that my pieces were more about brain, heart, and emotions, I moved to focus on them. Inspired by the movie Inside Out and my original vision and imagination, I wanted to visualize the intangible things that are going on inside ourselves, focusing on emotion and knowledge. The pieces are tied all together with the main theme and a constant drawing style through the materials, although the materials used vary. So I also added some examples. Concepts like brainwash, process of depression, and twisted memory are translated into visible images. So I heard that you also have to add some examples. Yeah, so for example, number 12, the last one shows the process of the outside elements absorbed into my head and converting them into tears that drown out the inner me in my heart into depression. And another one shows the formation of memory, comparing the eye to the projector and recalls what it saw. This is interpreted into memory that is transferred depending on the atmosphere and emotion of the time. So this was based on the concept of a distorted memory that happens inside your head. Yeah, so this was my general idea. When I was creating the first piece, I just had the idea that I wanted to do something with the emotions and invisible, untangible things. So this is really abstract, and because it should be invisible, I erased the part for the eyes, and I use watercolor and colored pencil for it. The next one is more specified, so I have some elements from the organs. So this is the brain, eyes, and lips. Since I wanted to use figurative language, these waves are like a blanket, but it's also the sleepiness. So when the waves come, my lips and eyes and brain will drown in the wave. So when it's drowned, it's not going to function anymore and I'm gonna fall asleep. And this one was called 9 States of Heart. So this one is like the basic heart, and this one is the heart in depression. And this one is a crazy heart. And this one is a drowning heart. And this one is like fluffy, happy, loving heart. And this one is the biological heart. This one was inspired from the word animal heart. And this is like a cold, frozen heart. And lastly, this is the sick heart. So I wanted to personify and differentiate each heart by just making them different. I had a lot of fun making this one because it felt like I was making 9 separate pieces. This drawing was inspired from the phrase pour out my heart, and I imagined what would be inside my heart, and I decided to focus on this creative part. So these are some of the things that I love and all those imaginations and passions and all those ideas I have in my head. And also, and if you look here, this is the jar from the 10th grade's artwork. So this has the hidden meaning. And for this one, I don't really know why I made this. I don't really like it because it's about cooking and this is the heart and this is the brain. So it's kind of creepy and gross. Yeah, anyways, I use colored pencil and watercolor. This one was inspired from the word brainwash. So I literally put the brain inside the laundry machine. I used colored pencil and watercolor to draw these. And I really like this part because this part is where I could do the experiment with textures. And the experiment here really influenced those drawings I made in the 12th grade. So they are really interconnected. All those mistakes and experiments I take here, it goes to the next step. So I think it's always helpful to make mistakes and experiments because it doesn't go in vain. It's always used later. For the background, I copied the text from a history book. It was about Russia and USSR in the 1900s. This one is a collage work. So for this part, I use markers. Here it's made out of oil paper and aluminum foils. And I also use charcoal and watercolor. And this was inspired from my memory in South Korea when I was in middle school because I was studying in academies until 10 every day. And this is like the reality, but in my head it's distorted, so the clock is also distorted. So this is the concept of distorted memory. For this one, I really did a lot of research on the brain, and I tried to show each part of the brain, and I tried to illustrate each functions of each part of the brain. So for example, since this part was about the memory, I added these. This one is called emotion processor. So when I perceive outside elements, it goes into my head and inside these things out. And this is inner me drowning inside my heart. So these are all the positive things that create the bubbles here, like an oxygen bubbles, and these are like the negative things, so it makes me drown. So when the negative parts overweigh the positive parts, then inner me gets drowned into depression. For this one, I wanted to show the connection and relationship between the brain and heart. So this is the switch where I get to sit. So here's my foot. When I sit on the chair, my body works. So the heart is likened to a battery and the brain is likened to a light bulb. And for this one, I used brown paper, charcoal, watercolor, ink, and colored pencil. This one is showing like the insecurity and security of our perception. This came from the idea of insecurity, and I wanted to contrast the insecurity and security between the heart and the brain. So it's relatively easy to see what someone thinks and to know what someone knows, but then it's harder to access to the deeper emotions and heart of a person. So this one was inspired from the idea of making the brain as the Pac-Man, and the cherries are like the learning ideas, like the concepts. So sometimes my brain crave for more knowledge and more ideas, and I likened this to a Pac-Man eating the cherry. And here I used some Korean letters, which becomes the word study when it's combined. And these are distracting my brain from studying. So that's all. And this is actually my favorite series of all the AP art because I put a lot of effort in making the idea for it, not only for the final product, but also in the process. So on the psychological concepts, and it was just fun because it was the topic that I was most interested in. If you would like to watch more of my AP artworks, you can click on the card. And I'm also planning to make more videos on the portfolio I have submitted for Art University, so please subscribe for more information.